Back in 1981, a young manager at this massive southern paper mill asked a question that, honestly, it still gives me chills when I read it.
Oh, the smart machine quote, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he was staring down the barrel of early workplace computerization, and he looks across the table with this really intense, almost desperate urgency, and he asks, are we all going to be working for a smart machine, or will we have smart people around the machine?
It is such a profound question. Because, beneath the surface of the circuit boards and the software updates, he was actually asking the oldest, most fundamental political questions that humanity faces.
Like, who's in charge here?
Exactly. Are we going to be the lord or the subject? The master or the slave? Are we moving toward a home, or are we being pushed into exile?
And that underlying tension, that feeling of being pushed into exile in our own lives, is the beating heart of our deep dive today. We're pulling from an incredible stack of research, largely anchored by Shoshanazuboff's groundbreaking work in the age of surveillance capitalism.
Which is just a massive, completely paradigm-shifting book.
It really is. And our mission for you, listening right now, is to uncover how your most private, mundane, daily experiences, from adjusting your living room thermostat to a casual late-night web search, how all of that was secretly claimed as free, raw material for a totally new economic order. We want to figure out if the digital future can actually be a place we call home.
Because what we are analyzing in these sources, it isn't just a familiar story about technology getting smarter or algorithms getting faster. The text argues that it's about a rogue mutation of capitalism.
A rogue mutation, yeah.
Right. Just as industrial capitalism threatened the natural world in the 19th and 20th centuries, the author points out that this new mutation threatens human nature itself in the 21st.
Which sounds intense, but to really grasp how far we've strayed from the path, we have to look at what the digital home was actually supposed to be.
Because the instinct for home is deep, right?
Exactly. We see it in nature. Like, loons and sea turtles will navigate thousands of miles across these treacherous environments just to return to their exact birthplaces. As humans, we crave that exact same sanctuary in the digital world. And back in the year 2000, scientists at Georgia Tech actually built it.
Oh, the Aware Home Project.
Yes, the Aware Home. It was this utopian vision where all your data, your movements, your medical conditions, your habits, it all stayed on a closed loop. It lived entirely on wearable computers controlled by the occupants. So it's total, absolute privacy.
That was the original dream, a human-home symbiosis built on absolute trust and the sovereignty of the individual. The house knew you, but it kept your secrets.
Right. But then let's fast forward and contrast that utopian vision with reality. Take the 2018 Nest thermostat, which is owned by Alphabet, Google's parent company.
It doesn't just keep you warm.
No, it absolutely does not. It tracks your movements, it learns your behaviors, and it shares that data with unnamed third parties. And what happens if you refuse their terms of service? Well, your smart pipes might freeze in the winter, or your smoke alarms might fail because they completely cut off your security updates.
Which is just wild.
And to read all the interconnected privacy policies just to keep your house warm, the research notes you'd have to review nearly 1,000 separate contracts. So, okay, let's unpack this. It's like moving into a state-of-the-art free apartment only to realize the landlord's actual business model is harvesting your body heat to power the city grid. And if you close the blinds, they literally shut off your oxygen.
That is a dark, but honestly structurally perfect analogy. And it brings us to the core mechanism we need to understand today, which is surveillance capitalism.
Right.
This economic model, it unilaterally claims your everyday behavior, it scrapes it, and turns it into something the author calls behavioral surplus.
Behavioral surplus. Let's make sure we are totally clear on this. This means the data they collect that they don't actually need to make your thermostat or your search engine work better.
Precisely. Like, if you misspell a word in a search engine, the system notes the timing of your keystrokes, your location, your hesitation. They aren't using the surplus exhaust just to fix your spelling.
They're hoarding it.
They are. That extra data is fed into advanced machine intelligence to create what the text calls prediction products. These anticipate what you will do now, soon, and later.
And then those predictions are traded in what are basically behavioral futures markets.
So advertisers, insurers, political campaigns, they buy the prediction of your future behavior.
Exactly. But what's fascinating here is that eventually, merely predicting your behavior wasn't enough to satisfy their massive growth margins. They realized the most lucrative path is to actively shape your behavior. Which feels like crossing a massive red line. I mean, it's one thing to show me an ad for a burger because, I like burgers. It's another thing entirely to use game mechanics to physically march me to a restaurant without me even realizing I'm being manipulated.
You've hit on exactly what the research terms instrumentarian power. It goes far beyond knowing your behavior. It actually seeks to automate you. Look at the augmented reality game Pokémon Go.
Oh man, I remember when everyone was playing that.
Right. Millions of people thought it was just innocent, nostalgic fun. But the game was actually designed to gently herd players through city streets towards sponsored fast food joints and bars. And those places paid the developers to play in these behavioral futures markets.
So the game was playing the players.
Exactly.
Which is just wild to think about in retrospect.
Mm-hmm.
But it begs a massive question. If our digital homes and games are actively manipulating us like lab rats, why didn't we notice? How did we walk into this trap with a smile on our faces?
Well, because human beings are notoriously bad at recognizing the truly unprecedented. When we encounter something that fundamentally alters our reality, our brains panic and try to understand it using old, comfortable categories.
There is this completely staggering true story from the author's own life that illustrates this perfectly.
Yeah.
So years ago, her house was struck by lightning and caught on fire.
Such a crazy story.
It really is. And when the smoke started rapidly filling the rooms, she went into this automatic, almost absurd crisis mode. She ran upstairs, closes all the bedroom doors to prevent smoke damage to the carpets. Then she ran downstairs, grabbed the family photo albums, and set them outside on a covered porch so they'd be safe from the soot.
While the house is burning down.
Yes. The fire marshal literally had to drag her out into the rain. And as she stood there, the entire house exploded into an inferno. She couldn't comprehend that the house was about to completely vanish. She was busy carefully closing doors to rooms that were fated to cease to exist.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that psychological blindness is exactly how we've reacted to surveillance capitalism. We rely on old lenses. We worry about standard monopolies or traditional privacy violation.
Right, like we're preventing smoke damage.
Exactly. We throw tiny regulatory fines at massive tech companies, completely blind to the fact that the entire concept of a private human experience is exploding into raw material. The book calls it the horseless carriage syndrome. We view the new invention merely as a slight extension of the past rather than an entirely new paradigm.
Wait, I have to ask the obvious question here, though. Isn't this just how the tech fundamentally works? I mean, I remember Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, famously arguing that search engines inherently must retain our data to function properly, that it's just the inevitable march of technology.
That is a brilliant, highly calculated piece of misdirection, and the research completely dismantles it. Schmidt's claim is the ultimate technology illusion.
How so?
Because surveillance capitalism is a logic, not a technology. The technology is just the puppet. The economic imperatives driving it are the puppet master. When Schmidt said search engines must retain data, he was intentionally conflating commercial imperatives with technological necessity.
Ah, I see.
The servers don't demand the retention and monetization of your behavioral surplus, the business model does. The hard truth of surveillance capitalism, according to the text, is that you are not the customer. And despite that popular saying everyone uses, you aren't even the product. You are merely the free, uncompensated raw material.
Okay, so we've established this is a parasitic logic.
Yeah.
But we didn't just walk into this trap blind, we were practically sprinting into it. We eagerly surrendered our entire lives to these platforms. Why?
That is the million-dollar question.
Well, the research points to this massive historical collision. We were actually running from something else. To understand it, we have to look at what's called the Apple hack. The explosion of the iPod and iTunes in the early 2000s.
Which completely inverted the old industrial psychological model.
Yes. Think about it. Henry Ford's mass production rule for the Model T was famously, you can have any color car you want so long as it's black. You conform to the mass market. But the iPod flipped that script entirely. It was 1,000 songs in your pocket. It was what I want, when I want, where I want.
It was ultimate personalization.
Apple trained us to expect perfectly curated, custom digital experiences. We loved our personalized playlists so much that when Google offered us personalized search results, we gladly handed over our data to get it, completely missing the trap.
And that shift in expectations represents the transition into what sociologists call the second modernity.
Right.
Think about the first modernity for a moment. Imagine immigrants fleeing a feudal village to come to industrial America 100 years ago. They had to forge a new path, but they still conformed to rigid, standardized roles of industrial mass society. You learned your trade, you played your part on the assembly line, and the system generally rewarded you with a stable pension and a house.
But the second modernity is different.
Very different. It accelerated in the late 20th century, and it demands individual self-determination. You are told you must author your own life, build your personal brand, and have your own unique voice.
But here comes the crushing economic reality that the text outlines. Just as society was telling you, you are a unique, self-determining individual. The economy was actively dismantling the road beneath your feet.
The neoliberal habitat?
Exactly. The 1970s ushered in this neoliberal shift. And we don't need to get bogged down in deep economic theory here, but practically speaking, the research notes that corporate focus shifted entirely to maximizing shareholder value based on theories from people like Milton Friedman.
Suddenly, lifelong pensions vanish.
Wages stagnated. The gig economy was born, leaving individuals highly vulnerable. The author points out that the social safety net of the mid-20th century was shredded in favor of raw market metrics, and this led to extreme inequality. The research even references Piketty's law, which basically proves that the return on wealth grows far faster than actual economic wages.
It created a wildly unbalanced world.
Yeah, the text notes that in the 2016 U.S. presidential election, just 158 incredibly wealthy families provided almost half of all the campaign money.
The contradiction is incredibly painful. History and culture freed us to be expressive individuals, but the new economic reality treated people as utterly disposable cogs struggling to pay rent.
So what does this all mean for us? It's like society promised you a luxurious custom-built life, but the economy essentially handed you a set of scavenged parts and said, good luck surviving. We felt invisible, excluded, and desperate for some kind of anchor.
And that desperation drove us to the internet. We saw refuge, connection, and a place where our voices actually mattered. But the surveillance capitalists were waiting. They saw our profound need for a digital home, and they lured us in.
Like a spider web.
Exactly. And the mechanism they used to trap us is what legal scholars call contracts of adhesion. Think about the last time you blindly clicked "I agree" on a massive software update just to get it off your screen so you could text your friend.
Ugh, click wrap. The absolute bane of modern existence.
Right. Scholars refer to these as sadistic and a form of private eminent domain. They legally bind you to a universe entirely of the tech firm's devising, stripping away your constitutional rights to privacy before you even know what you signed away.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because to understand exactly how the trap snapped shut, we need to trace this all the way back to the pioneer. We have to look at early Google, because in its absolute earliest days, Google wasn't built on surveillance at all.
No, it really wasn't.
It operated on what was called a behavioral value reinvestment cycle.
That's a crucial, often forgotten piece of history.
Yeah. When users made spelling errors or clicked in certain patterns, that data exhaust was used for one thing and one thing only: to make the search engine better for the user. It was a perfect balance of power. The users needed search to find things, and search needed the users to get smarter. In fact, Larry Page and Sergey Brin wrote a paper in 1998 explicitly stating that advertising-funded search engines would be inherently biased against consumers. They hated the idea of ads.
They were idealists. But then came April 2000, the dot-com crash.
Doom stalks Silicon Valley.
Seriously. The industry was fueled by impatient money, and massive venture capital investors were screaming for sustained, exponential profits to survive the crash. It created a severe financial emergency within Google. They needed a way to monetize and fast, and this created what political scientists call a state of exception.
Right, like when a government suspends the rule of law during a crisis.
Like declaring martial law, exactly. But Google applied this commercially. They declared a financial emergency and quietly suspended their own ethical rules regarding user data.
And that brings us to a specific moment in April 2002 that literally changed human history. The Carol Brady moment.
Oh, the breakthrough.
Yes. Google's data logs team noticed a bizarre, massive, recurring spike in search queries. Exactly 48 minutes after the hour, across successive time zones, thousands and thousands of people were suddenly searching for Carol Brady's maiden name.
Which seems completely random.
Totally. The engineering team was completely baffled until they realized the spike perfectly matched the broadcast of the television game show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. rolling across the country. Sergey Brin was blown away. He described it as being like looking through an electron microscope at human society.
And this is the exact pivot point. This was the moment Google realized they didn't just have a tool for indexing web pages. They had a moment-by-moment barometer of human thought, anxiety, and behavior.
A gold mine.
Exactly. They realized the data exhaust wasn't just useful for improving search, it was an untapped gold mine of behavioral surplus that could predict what people were thinking and doing in real time.
So under the pressure of that state of exception, they filed a patent in 2003 titled Generating User Information for Use in Targeted Advertising. This was the ultimate mutation.
The point of no return.
Right. Top scientists designed algorithms specifically to profile users and mathematically bypass their decision rights. The patent explicitly states they would collect this data even if users actively tried to withhold it or hide their profiles. The reinvestment cycle was officially dead. The extraction of behavioral surplus had begun.
Which fundamentally changed the internet from a space of democratic empowerment into a hidden architecture of extraction.
Now, hearing all this, the patents, the secret tracking, the behavioral futures markets, it's incredibly easy to feel like we are just helpless victims, that this technological domination is completely inevitable and we should just give up.
But we shouldn't.
Right, the research pushes back on that hard. It takes us to August 9, 2011 to prove a point. Now, on this specific day, two massive things happened globally. Apple officially became the most capitalized corporation in the world, and massive violent riots were raging across London, driven by that exact extreme economic inequality we talked about earlier.
A very dark day in many ways.
Yeah, but over in Spain, a totally different kind of resistance was taking shape.
Yes, the remarkable story of Pasteleria La Doce.
It's such a beautiful counter-narrative. It's this century-old bakery in Barcelona. The 2011 economic crisis was absolutely ravaging Spain. Unemployment was astronomical. Everyone, all the financial advisors, told the Montes family to just sell the bakery building, take the cash, and surrender to the inevitable economic tide washing over the country.
But they didn't.
No. The patriarch, Papafito Montes, flat out refused. He gathered his family in the bakery and declared, "The future will need the past. The future is our home too." They chose to fight for their right to exist in the future tense on their own terms.
And that exact same spirit of human resistance was simultaneously echoing in the halls of the Spanish Data Protection Agency. The agency took up the incredibly difficult cause of 90 ordinary citizens who were demanding what they called the right to be forgotten by Google's massive indexing machine.
These weren't tech activists either. These were everyday people. One was a man whose long-resolved, years-old foreclosure notice kept popping up as the first result in searches, completely ruining his reputation and ability to get a job. Another was a domestic abuse survivor who was terrified because casual Google searches were revealing her new, hidden address.
This raises an important question, one that gets to the very soul of our modern information civilization. Does a search engine's economic imperative to hoard and index every piece of data indefinitely actually trump basic human dignity and physical safety?
And in 2014, after years of legal battles, the European Court of Justice gave a definitive, world-shaking answer. No, it does not. They mandated that Google must honor requests from citizens to delink deeply personal, irrelevant data.
It was a monumental ruling. It asserted that the free flow of commercial information matters, but not nearly as much as the safeguarding of human dignity.
Of course, Google executives publicly mocked the decision at the time, calling it censorship. But the dominoes had already started to fall. Soon after, California passed the online eraser law, giving minors the right to delete their digital footprints.
The tide was shifting.
Yeah, and the takeaway here is so powerful. Technological inevitability is a total myth designed to make you complacent. The future does not belong to the algorithm by default. It can be shaped, restrained, and actually governed by democratic processes and human courage, not just commercial decree.
If we look at the entire journey we've taken today, we can really see the full hidden architecture of the trap. We saw how our deep desire for self-determination collided with harsh economic realities, leaving us desperate for a digital sanctuary.
And we saw how Google, under the intense financial pressure of a dot-com state of exception, weaponized our digital exhaust, turning a simple tool for searching the web into a multi-billion-dollar surveillance machine.
And they did it right under our noses while we were busy closing doors to rooms that were already vanishing.
Exactly.
But I want to leave you with a chilling final thought drawn directly from the research. Surveillance capitalism is no longer confined to the virtual world of search bars and targeted ads. It is rapidly migrating into the physical world, into our smart homes, our city infrastructure, our cars.
That's terrifying.
It is. And its ultimate goal isn't just selling us things. Drawing on the radical behaviorist B.F. Skinner, the text warns that the endgame is the creation of a human hive. A future where instrumentarian power organizes and tunes human society so perfectly, so seamlessly, that group pressure and computational certainty replace the messy work of politics and democracy entirely.
Wow. That is the real existential threat of the smart machine. It wants to manage us, not serve us. So as you go about your day today, as you adjust your smart thermostat or scroll through a customized feed or casually click "I agree" on a pop-up to read an article, ask yourself, what doors am I closing to rooms that are already vanishing in my own digital life? The digital future can still be our home, but only if we refuse to be treated as raw material and actively fight for our right to the future tense. Catch you next time.